History remembers Genghis Khan as the man no one could defeat. He burned cities to the ground, erased kingdoms from existence, and ruled with such fear that entire armies surrendered before the first arrow was fired. But what history rarely tells you is that there was one man who refused to kneel. One king, young, outnumbered, abandoned by his own allies, who stood face to face with the invincible Khan and made him turn back in retreat. This is not the story of Genghis Khan. This is the story of Jalaluddin Mingburnu, the forgotten king who nearly broke the legend. Jalaluddin wasn't born into peace. His father, Sultan Muhammad of Khwarezm, ruled a vast empire stretching across Persia and Central Asia, powerful but arrogant. When he made the mistake of insulting Genghis Khan, the greatest storm in history was unleashed. Mongol armies swept through the kingdom like wildfire. Cities crumbled. Scholars were butchered. Markets turned into graveyards. Jalaluddin, barely in his late teens, watched his empire collapse in front of his eyes. His own brothers began fighting for the throne instead of fighting the enemy. His army was shattered. His people were fleeing, and then his father died, leaving him with nothing but a crown built on ashes. No support. No allies, no time to mourn. Just one brutal choice: run like the others, or stand and fight the monster everyone else feared. Jalaluddin chose war. Jalaluddin didn't wait for the Mongols to find him. He struck first. He led his small force into a surprise attack against a Mongol scouting unit near Nishapur. The Mongols, known for terrorizing entire cities, suddenly found themselves hunted instead of hunters. Swords clashed. Horses crashed. The desert shook with war cries. Jalaluddin was at the front, never hiding behind his men. He personally cut through enemy lines, shouting, "If Genghis wants blood, then let him taste mine first." By the time the dust settled, the Mongols were dead, every last one. Word began to spread like wildfire. There is a king who does not fear Genghis Khan. But Jalaluddin knew. This was only the beginning. News of the young warrior king reached Genghis Khan himself. The Mongol ruler didn't react with anger. He reacted with interest. "A cub that bites," he said. "Let us see if he roars." Genghis immediately ordered his son, Shigi-Kutuku, to hunt Jalaluddin down with 20,000 elite soldiers, a force 10 times larger than Jalaluddin's army. Most kings would surrender. Jalaluddin only smiled and whispered, "Good, now I know he's watching." Jalaluddin retreated toward the Indus River, chased by the Mongol horde. Trapped between the river and Genghis Khan's massive army, his commanders panicked. "Your Majesty," one of them cried, "we've lost. There is nowhere left to run." Jalaluddin looked at the raging river behind him, and then at the enemy before him. "Then we don't run," he answered calmly. "We ride through them. Shall I continue in the same flow and complete all remaining 12 sections right now?" "Reply with continue and I'll deliver the rest in one go." "You said continue," ChatGPT said, "understood." Continuing with the same cinematic tone and dialogue style, expanding all the way to section 16 without breaking the flow. The sun rose over the Indus River as Jalaluddin and his warriors formed a tight line. Behind them, the roaring waters. In front, a sea of Mongol cavalry stretching across the horizon. Genghis Khan himself rode forward to watch. He didn't offer peace. He didn't ask for surrender. He simply raised his hand, and the Mongol army charged. But Jalaluddin roared back, "Khwarezm does not kneel." His men held the line with a fury no one expected. Every Mongol strike was met with a counterattack. Horses crashed. Steel rang. Blood stained the riverbank red. The Mongols were winning through sheer number, but Jalaluddin refused to fall. As the Mongols began to push them back, Jalaluddin made a decision no one could have imagined. He turned toward the Indus River and spurred his horse into a full gallop. His soldiers stared in disbelief. Was their king? Running? No. With the Mongol army right behind him, Jalaluddin launched himself and his horse off a cliff, straight into the raging river below. The splash was thunderous. The Mongols halted in shock. Even Genghis Khan stood, frozen. Everyone expected Genghis to order arrows to finish him off, but instead he simply watched as Jalaluddin emerged from the water, soaked but unbroken, riding toward the other side. Genghis Khan turned to his generals and said, "Such a son should have been born to me." The man known for never praising anyone had just honored his enemy. Jalaluddin hadn't just survived. He had earned the respect of the most feared man in history, though he escaped. Jalaluddin had lost most of his army in the battle. He reached India alone, without soldiers, without wealth, just his sword and his name. Most kings would disappear into history after such a fall. But not him. He looked across the land and declared, "If I have breath, I have a kingdom." And so he began again, gathering new warriors, making alliances, building an army from nothing. But Jalaluddin's greatest threat was not always the Mongols, it was jealous rulers who feared his rise. A local Indian king who had first welcomed him grew suspicious of his growing influence. During a night of supposed celebration, assassins crept into Jalaluddin's camp. They expected to kill a sleeping exile. Instead, they found a warrior awake with his sword drawn. Jalaluddin cut them down and escaped once again, proving that even betrayal could not end him. As years passed, the name Jalaluddin became a legend whispered across lands. To his allies, he was the Lion of Khwarezm. To his enemies, he was the man who would not die. Even the Mongols, now ruling across continents, still spoke of him with unease. Some claimed he was gathering armies again. Others said he would return like a storm, and they were right. Jalaluddin raised a new army in Azerbaijan, reclaiming lands and uniting tribes. But the Mongols were never far behind. This time, it was Chormakhan Noyan, one of Genghis Khan's deadliest generals, who marched against him. Jalaluddin stood before his men and shouted, "We may die today, but we will die as kings, not slaves." The battlefield roared with his words. The battle raged like thunder. Jalaluddin fought like a man possessed, cutting down rider after rider. Even as arrows tore into his armor, he refused to fall. The Mongols encircled his forces, but he broke through again and again. He had no intention of winning, only of being remembered. The Mongols claimed victory at last, but Jalaluddin's body was never found. Some said he escaped once more. Some said he died with his sword in hand. No one knows for certain. But one thing is clear. The Mongols could conquer lands, kings and empires, but they could never conquer Jalaluddin's legacy. To this day, historians quote Genghis Khan's rare words of admiration. "Such a son should have been born to me, out of all his enemies." Jalaluddin was the only one he respected. That alone makes him immortal. Schools never taught his name. Movies never showed his story. History nearly erased him. But legends do not need books to survive. They live in voices, in stories, in courage. Today, people across the world, from Turkey to Pakistan, from Iran to Central Asia, have begun honoring Jalaluddin as a symbol of resistance. Statues and murals are appearing. Songs are being written. Even filmmakers have started discussing adaptations of his life. Why? Because every generation needs a hero who refuses to kneel. And Jalaluddin Mingburnu is not just a king of the past. He is a challenge to the present. Jalaluddin Mingburnu proved one thing. You don't need to win to be a legend. Sometimes all it takes is refusing to bow. His empire may have fallen, but his spirit, untouchable, unbroken, eternal. Centuries have passed. Empires have vanished. Kings have turned to dust. But Jalaluddin's story still whispers one timeless lesson. True power isn't in never falling. It's in standing back up, even when the world believes you're finished. Today his name may not be printed in textbooks, but to those who know his legacy, he is more than a king. He is a reminder that even when fate corners you, even when the world turns against you, there is always one move left: fight. For centuries, Jalaluddin's story lay buried in old manuscripts, scattered between Persian chronicles, Mongol records, and forgotten poetry. But in recent years, historians began connecting the missing pieces. They realized he wasn't just a warrior. He wasn't just another king. He was the only ruler in history who faced Genghis Khan head-on and forced him to step back. Universities now teach his battles. Documentaries whisper his name slowly. The lion is roaring again. Jalaluddin Mingburnu may have vanished from the pages of history, but legends don't live in books. They live in those who carry their spirit forward. He didn't fight because he knew he would win. He fought because some things are worth standing for. even when the world calls it impossible. So the question now is, would you have the courage to stand like him when everyone else chooses to kneel? Because in the end, Jalaluddin didn't just defeat fear. He proved that even against the greatest power on earth, one man's defiance can echo for centuries.